So, first of all, I want to tell you this is not a political video. This is to remind you of who you are. I used to be one of these people who was caught up in the politics and ready to fight and argue and be hateful and bitter towards my neighbor or my longtime friends. I was ready to stop being friends with them because of a difference in opinion. So I had to pull myself away from that political spirit, because it is a spirit. I had to pull myself away from that political spirit and remember who I was. And instead I took and put all of that fire that I had for the politics into my God, and have been a better person for it since. Now, you have the right to believe whatever you want. If you're a Democrat, you have the right to be a Democrat. If you're a Republican, you have the right to be a Republican. You have the right to vote any way you want to. What you do not have the right to do is to be hateful to the person who didn't believe the way that you believed, who didn't vote the way that you voted. You got to remember that America was founded on the right to believe the way that you wanted. It was founded on the right to vote the way that you wanted. And you didn't have to explain yourself. You didn't have to be persecuted for it. There's a lot of controversy going on right now. There's a lot of hate mongering, and there is a lot of bitterness going on, even among Christians. I'm here to remind you to remember who you are. You are the child of God, and if Jesus was down here looking at you and talking to you right now, he would remind you to love thy neighbor, to choose to forgive, turn the other cheek. Jesus gave us the right to believe whatever we wanted to believe. He wanted us to believe in him, but if you didn't believe in him, he was like, so be it. He never twisted anybody's arm, and he never forced anybody to believe in him. Now, I've watched politicians or political hatefulness and political bitterness among people that were friends on my Facebook, who are friends since elementary and high school. And they have a difference in opinion in politics. And now they will probably never speak again. And that really saddens me. It really saddens me that people who said they were Christians are acting very little like a Christian. Not acting like a child of God. People didn't vote the way they wanted them to vote. And I don't care what side of the fence you're on. I've seen it on both sides. It's not right. You're letting your differences get in the way of your friendship. You're letting your differences get in the way between you and God. Now, I have also watched the same spirit of hatefulness and anger and bitterness go on in the religious spirit, where I have watched many ministers who have called out other ministers on their sins, or threatened to call out other ministers on their sins. Let me remind you that none of us are sinless, that we all are tempted. And if you ever forget that, and you put yourself on a pedestal that you are perfect, you will fall. Not only will you fall, you put yourself above God. Because none of us were perfect, and we're all sinners, and it says that in the Bible. There are ministers who have fell, big ministers. And instead of talking about them and gossiping about them and putting them down on your platforms, why aren't you praying for them and building them up? Did you forget how many seeds they sown? How many people they led to God? before they fell into temptation. Everybody falls into temptation. I don't care who you are. Every single person falls into temptation. You are not above it. And I don't care how strong you are in your faith. You are never above temptation. I see this spirit of hatred, the spirit of bitterness, the spirit of anger sweeping across our nation. And it's wrong. It's wrong, and I'm praying against it. And I ask anybody who is a Christian to pray against these spirits. We may not all agree, and we probably won't, ever. But we don't have to be angry with each other. We don't have to be hateful with each other. And we don't even have to talk about the politics. Just let it be. When the Democrats were in office, the Republicans were angry. They had to deal with it. Now that the Republicans are in office, the Democrats are angry, but they're going to have to deal with it. That's just the way it goes across the board. Doesn't matter what side you're on. When your party is not up there, you're going to have to deal with it. And anger and hatefulness and bitterness towards your neighbor is not going to help the fact that it happened, that the people were voted in. I know how you're feeling. I was on fire for my politics at one time. But then I realized that my politics were destroying me as a person. No matter it wouldn't have mattered what side I was on. The politics would have destroyed me as a person with that much fury, anger, and hatred behind it. Something's wrong with this picture when we got that much anger, hatred, and bitterness behind something. So I'm calling you as a Christian to pray against the spirit. And I'm calling you as a Christian, if you are having this issue with anger and hatred and bitterness building up, to remember who you are. You are a child of God, first and foremost. Everything else is secondary in the worldly. Everything is secondary and worldly. Did you forget this? We're not supposed to be of this world, but in this world. It's a hard adjustment not getting what you wanted. I understand. I've been there. But it's time that we act as grown people, loving people, good people, God's people, and remember who we are and where we come from. It is okay to disagree. It's okay. You don't have to talk about the politics. You don't have to even worry about it. Just give it to God. Because God's in control. Don't matter who's in the president position. Doesn't matter which side is in the politics that's in the position. God is the one that's in control. He's always been in control. And no man has ever been in control. And you're fooled if you think there is. So, this is not to be mean or angry or hateful in any way. This is to remind you who you are. To remind you that no matter what sin somebody is walking in, it's not for you to call it out or call on it. It's for you to pray for that person and go to God. And it's between God and them. And it is not for you to hate your neighbor because they disagreed with you or voted a different way. Anyway, if anyone comes up against me on a political basis, I'm just going to ignore it and walk away, turn the other cheek. So, anyway, I want to remind you who you are and tell you, God bless you.